Thank you, gentlemen. I wanted to do something before we get into the election discussion today regarding the earlier comment from one of the other members on the other side of the aisle that she was appalled that there was no Republican outrage over the Russians' apparent hacking of the DCCC. I would note that there's probably about the same amount of outrage from the Democrats over Hillary Clinton's dumping of a bunch of emails destroying evidence in a federal investigation. Having said that, in full disclosure, I was an election clerk and election judge and a precinct chair for about 16 years in Texas, in Brazoria County, when we had good old-fashioned paper ballots. I was one of the few who raised my hand when they said, look, we want to pass a resolution encouraging electronic voting. I said, I don't. I like the paper system. I don't trust the internet, as back in the 90s. Seems as if we've come full circle. Now, y'all are saying that there are some states who are literally considering going back to paper ballots. So here's a question for, I guess, all of you, one at a time. We'll start with you, Dr. Romine. Well, first of all, let's do it this way. How many states have paper?
I think there's only 5 states that are completely without paper. There's some states in the middle that have a mix, depending on the county, of papered and non-paper systems.
Okay. What states, in your opinion, has the best system, Dr. Romine?
I don't have insight into the systems that that are being used statewide.
So you really haven't formulated an opinion in that regard?
I don't have the data.
Okay, fair enough. Now, if you say Louisiana, Secretary Shedler, I'm just saying.
My response to that would be the best system for which the people of that state feel comfortable in voting.
Yeah, touche.
Okay, because New Hampshire, I mean, you can just think of the variety that we have across the board, from the East Coast to the West Coast and Oregon. I mean, just totally different constituencies, totally different comfort zones. And, you know, some people still like going to vote in the neighbor's garage. And if that's what they want to do, and then that's good for that state. So, I mean, I guess that's the best answer I could give you. I wouldn't say that we're the best. Although a few years ago, Pew had us at number 18, which would surprise you, I bet. Because I used to always say, if you interviewed people on the streets of New York on a late-night television show, they'd never mention Louisiana in the top 20, but we're there. We've done a lot of...
They usually don't know what they're talking about anyway.
That's correct. That's correct. But I think that's probably, I know that's a kind of a politically correct answer, but out of respect for all my colleagues and all the states, I think you have to make that decision.
Okay, Mr. Becker.
I'll also be diplomatic here. I think if you ask most election officials around the country at the state or local level, most of them will say that the technology they're using, none of them have found the ideal system yet, that they're looking for something new to come around.
But so you don't have an opinion about that?
I don't have an opinion of a particular state. I think the work that's being done in places like Los Angeles County to come up with a system that's based on off-the-shelf components that is largely accessible is going to be very instructive to the entire field.
Dr. Wallach?
Well, I'm gonna toot the horn of 3 different states where I enjoy what they're doing.
Okay.
I like California's use of risk-limiting audits, where you can audit paper and compare it to electronic results. I like what Florida has done, where they got rid of the paperless electronic voting machines. My parents live in Fort Lauderdale, and they now vote on a laser printer will print out a ballot on demand, so they can have early voting in vote centers. So Florida is now doing remarkably good stuff. And I, of course, have to say something good about Texas. I think in Travis County, we're building a really great system, and it could potentially be applied in a lot of other places.
Are you from Travis County?
Nope. I live in Houston. I grew up in Dallas.
Okay. So let me just also say here, having been the recipient of when a lot of those ballot boxes were carried, Brazoria County is a big area. Pearland, where I grew up, is like 40 miles north of the county seat. And as an election judge, we would, in the general election, I was, of course, in the primary and the general election too, we would always take our Democratic counterpart in the general election, take the ballot boxes down, turn them to the county. I've been on the receiving end of when it took 45 minutes to an hour just for the drive time, and people are wanting those results. What is the most, one quick question, the last one, is that right, Mr. Chairman? Okay. What is the most critical time of a cyber attack?
I would say that a cyber actor who knows what they're doing is acting months to years in advance, and because they don't necessarily have access.
But I'm talking about if they were going to affect the November election coming up, is that something done the night of, the week before? You're saying years, are you saying they get into the system?
Yeah, you get in way in advance, and then you have whatever effect you're trying to have. If your goal is to create chaos, then you want to have your effect very late. If you're, and it all depends what you're trying to do.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, I yield back. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I want to thank the